Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. On today's show, the lockout has begun. Rob Manfred pens a letter to fans. Rosters and MLB websites are scrubbed and only have historical stories and clips. And we have all the transactions the Yankees made before the lockout began. All on Locked On Yankees.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked Out Yankees.
We're locked out.
We're locked out of baseball. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias, joined by Abby Mastracco. And yeah, the lockout has begun. And I woke up this morning. I actually went to bed before the lockout officially began. So I didn't know some of the things that were going to happen. And then when I woke up and saw certain things, like I mentioned in the cold open, I was kind of shocked. Now, before we get into all that, let me tell you all how you can listen to us and watch us. You can listen Apple, Google, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere. There are so many podcasting platforms that there seems to be new ones every day, and we're on all of them. You can tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Yankees, and you can watch and subscribe to us on YouTube. So I didn't realize that, I don't think anyone realized, that when you go to the MLB sites, the rosters, like the pictures are gone. The guys' pictures are gone.
That's kind of wild.
It's really wild. They have historical videos. Like when I went to the mobile site for the Yankees, it's like a Mickey Mantle clip, Ron Guidry, Bobby Mercer, like nothing new. And when you go there, you have the letter from Rob Manfred, which we'll talk about in a bit, a FAQ, an FAQ about the lockout and why it's happening. And I just had no idea that any of this would be happening because the last lockout that sports fans went through was hockey, right? That was 10 years ago. And I don't...
No, it was 2012, 13. So...
Oh, okay. So, close because we're almost in 2022. But I don't really remember that much about that, but I don't remember. I think someone said they did do sort of the same thing with the websites, with the scrubbing of stuff, but not everything. This just feels really strange to me. And
there was some scrubbing of stuff, but I believe there was still stats left because I remember having to look and I was finding stats just fine.
Right.
There were some issues with the team reporters who were talking to players still, and the teams and the leagues were like, we pay you, you're on our side. You got to be on our side. Mm-hmm. So that was, I'm trying to think. I wasn't super involved with that lockout. Mm-hmm. Sort of on the periphery.
Yeah, it was interesting because, I was lying in bed checking my phone like I normally do. And when I saw, it was one of the Pittsburgh beat writers talking about everything being scrubbed. So I checked the mobile site and just laughed. I laughed. And then the funny thing is on the mobile site, there's no option to share a link to Manfred's letter. There is if you go through Safari, there is. But if you're doing it through your MLB app.
Why would you want to share it?
I know.
It's not a good letter.
I know, it's really not. I just was trying to show people in case people didn't know and they were waking up and were like, what the hell happened to everything? So,
and it's just so it for me as a reporter who has worked for team sites before, it's a little, I would feel a little bit slighted. And I'm sure that all of the MLB advanced media reporters were given a heads up ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And they've got to play by some sort of weird gray area rules because they're maybe not gray area. I'm sure they're, they get the rules told to them before it even happens because they are paid by the league's media entity, MLBAM, BAM, as we call it. Mm-hmm. But I feel bad for my friends who work really hard to create good content and find good stories and do really good reporting. And now none of their stuff can be seen right now. And it's I have friends all over the league and Brian Hoke with Yankees.com. He's a great writer. He maybe this is a good go read Hoax books. Go buy Hoax books if you're looking
Yes.
for some baseball content. But maybe this is a chance to find some other writers that maybe you didn't know of before and pick up a newspaper or, subscribe to maybe the newspaper. If picking up a physical copy isn't, there's not a ton of content in that these days, but
Right.
subscribe to your favorite newspaper. I don't work for them anymore, but I did, and I'm just ultimately a stand for journalism. So please support the writers.
Yeah.
Even in the lockout.
Yeah,
there's still content.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I really just I was like, I had no idea that was going to happen, and part of me was thinking, I did a freelance project with MLB. I helped out with, they have that quick question series on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I wrote the spring training script. So, it was like, yes, I was freelance, but I got paid by MLB. And part of me is like, should I be bad-mouthing them? Like, I feel like, maybe I shouldn't badmouth them.
Well, I've written for MLB.com, and I don't have anything bad to say about the people that I've worked with. It's been a great experience.
No, the people are great. Yeah.
And I don't want to badmouth the league too much because at the end of the day, like we've talked about, we're all baseball fans, but at the same time, like this letter is, it's not optically, it's not good. Although, look, as somebody who has worked in PR before, he's got to take the owner's side of this because he's the commissioner. Yeah. He has to take the owner's side of this. They're the ones who keep him employed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the part that bothered me was when he said that the players' suggestions would have made the game less competitive. And the players from day one have said, we need to change the rules to encourage more teams to be competitive. Like Max Scherzer yesterday, his bottom line was incentivize teams to compete. So for Rob Manfred to say that all of their suggestions would have made baseball less competitive, I sort of find that hard to believe. Yeah. And I find that to be some PR spin, which we expect.
Right.
We expect on both sides.
Right.
But that was the one part of the letter that really sort of bothered me because the players are fighting for the integrity of the game and the owners are fighting for money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are two very different things. They go hand in hand, but they're very different things. And to meet each of these goals that each of these parties have, there's two, you can meet in the middle. And it just seems like neither side wants to meet in the middle, probably because of money.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's what it's about, is money.
They also explain on the site, there's an explanation as to why they took everything down. And I thought that was interesting because I'm sure people who were going to the sites, if they were going to the sites today to see anything, they were probably like, what's happening here? So at least they explained everything, the people who work for MLB, and why they had to take things down and why you're going to see historical stuff, which I'm not, I don't hate seeing historical stuff. I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, scrubbing the stats is something
it just was so strange to me that they scrubbed the whole sites. I understand right now when there's not a lot of content because they're locked out. Yes, historical stuff is exactly the type of thing that it's great to run on a team league specific site.
Right.
However, scrubbing the whole site, I still just find that strange.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's probably some legalities to it that are above my head. I've worked in media for a long time. I understand that sometimes there are a very complex set of rules for these things. But just taking the stats down even.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when the NHL locked out last time, we still had access to stats. Because I don't think I was looking on Hockey Reference for everything.
Right. I mean, at least, people have that. You have Baseball Reference, you have Fangraphs, you have Baseball Prospectus, you have different places to look.
You have different places to look.
Yeah. But it's just really, I thought I was going crazy. I was like, wait a minute, what is happening here? This is really strange. Before we I want to get really into Manfred's letter and kind of like, because I have it up. I kind of want to dissect it, almost like a Fire Joe Morgan thing. But before we, well, not quite, but before we go into that, BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before because football season, that's still happening, and they're continuing their march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for the sports action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, to receive that bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks again for making Locked On Yankees your first listen. We're free and available on all platforms. By the way, if you have Spotify Unwrapped and Locked On Yankees appears on it, excuse me, there was a cat flying by me. Feel free to tweet at us the picture. I've had a couple people tweet Locked On Yankees in their top 5, which is kind of cool. One person from Spain, which I was amazed about, so that's pretty cool. So yeah,
Love Spain.
Yeah, if you have Spotify Unwrapped, tag us. If you're looking on YouTube, you can see our Twitter handles. If you're listening, Stay Scott's, STACEGOTS, because my full name is too long. And then Abbey, ABBEY, like Abbey Road.
Abbey like the road.
Yep, MASTRACCO. And obviously, tag Locked On Yankees, all one word. So Manfred's letter. Yes, this was something. And I'm scrolling and scrolling. I'm like, wow, this is pretty long. Okay,
It's pretty extensive, yeah. I think the key parts for me were, they offered to establish a salary floor for the first time in baseball history, which, I've said before, I'm a proponent of.
Me too.
And, he's explaining why he felt it was the lockout was needed in order to jumpstart negotiations, although I don't know that it's jumpstarted anything.
Right.
It's the owners locking the doors. It's not the players.
Oh, speaking of that, Andrew McCutcheon posted a video of, I think it was a Jets player that couldn't get into somewhere, either their training place or something, and it said, players, and then it said owners, and it was just,
it's a scene from Hard Knocks.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's funny.
I know that clip. Yeah.
Yeah. So he did that. It was thought that was funny, and the players are a lot of them are changing their Twitter avatars to the blank pictures that are on all the MLB websites.
Right.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. The two seem to not be in agreement on anything. And Manfred is outlining the items that they disagree on. I'm not sure. What I would like to know is more details on what the Players Association, what their sticking points were. The ones that Manfred says, because he does sort of go into it. He lists them, but I'd like a little bit more elaboration on them.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know how specifically or maybe not him. Can we get a neutral arbiter on this? Like, give me somebody who can play both sides of the fence,
right,
who can break down like the legalese of some of this for me, because I didn't go to law school.
Right.
I would like to know how specifically the items that Manfred is saying would make the game less competitive would do that. How would they make the game less competitive? But I'd also like to know from an arbiter's point of view how the league side of things is contributing to making the game less competitive as well. I mean, we do know some of that already though, because the game has been less competitive in the last few years. I just would like maybe like a neutral party to break down some of the legalese for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have plenty of baseball writers who were once lawyers or who at least went to law school, because I remember when I joined Baseball Prospectus, I'll tell you all right now, I barely graduated high school because I had undiagnosed ADHD. No one knew. Made it through college. I actually was okay in college because, when you're in college, you're taking classes you like and that you choose to take. It's such a difference from high school where you're forced to take things that you don't want to take. But I felt like a kindergartner in a room with PhDs compared to the people I was writing with, because so many of them had law degrees or they had PhDs in something else, or at least masters in something else. And, You have Craig Calcaterra likes breaking things down, and I
Yeah.
think he did in his latest newsletter.
His newsletter is really good. If you
Yeah,
don't subscribe, you really should consider it. It's very thoughtful.
yeah, yeah, and he's really good at breaking stuff down.
Mhm.
There are a bunch of other lawyers slash writers that I've become friends with over the years on Twitter who would do a really good job of breaking this stuff down. Because I took one law class in high school, actually passed it, passed the fake bar, and won my court case. Thank you very much. But
Wow.
do I remember anything? No, because it was 30 years ago. But
I was a political science minor in college, but it ended up being that I took more political theory and political philosophy classes because I'm much better at like the big picture, like broad, how does this affect this 50 years down the line, than I am just straight legalese kind of thing. Because
yeah.
my backup plan after college was, oh, go to law school if I don't get a job. And then I got a job and I was never going to go to law school anyway, let's be honest.
Law
But
school I don't know how people do it. I really don't.
I give them a ton of credit. Any of you out there listening who have gone to law school or are lawyers, you're much smarter than I am.
Yeah. And, I'm sure that over the next few days or even the next day or two, we'll be seeing things where people are breaking this down more for, people to digest and understand, because there are a lot of us out there that don't understand a lot of this stuff. But
Yeah, and I just think the tone of this letter is. I mean, I don't have to like look on Twitter to understand. I got some angry text from some baseball friends today. The tone of this letter, it really irked a lot of fans who sort of have like they took it as like an us versus them mentality. Because look, the casual baseball fan probably can't really relate to the average billionaire right now,
right.
and it's sort of that's the divide that we're seeing right now.
Well, it feels a
And
lot different than 94, because by
yes.
94, there had been a few work stoppages up to that point. And, you had 81, and there were other times where things happened, where now there's been such a long gap between the work stoppages, and people are seeing how the baseball owners are doing things. And there are a lot more people that I would have expected to side with the owners, which I never understand that when fans side with the owners. But there are a lot of people siding with the players this time, and it feels different to me.
There's a lot. There's in the last lockout. There was the last work stoppage. There was a lot more sympathy for the owners than there is now. Now, it's an entirely different economic climate. Like there's a lot of us who look personally. I got laid off last year, and I struggled last year. I moved in with family for a bit because I couldn't get unemployment right away. And when I did get unemployment, it obviously was not as much as my paycheck was. And I rebounded, but there are a lot of people out there that the pandemic really shook their entire world upside down, whether it was because they had a family member that they had to go take care of, or financially they lost everything. You're not going in a time where so many people are struggling right now. You're not going to get a ton of sympathy for billionaire owners who there's going to be a perception that they're haggling over dollars and cents. It is not dollars and cents, but I have seen some fans who they kind of perceive it that way, and they say, well, I have no sympathy for athletes who are paid millions of dollars to play a child's game. They should just suck it up and agree to what the owners want. I don't understand that mentality either. And I don't know. It's just unfortunate because it took baseball so long to get over the last lockout, and this is going to have long-term ramifications, even if we don't miss any regular season games. There's labor peace is never really truly peaceful. There are going to be long-term consequences of this. There's going to be this resentment, even when a perfect example last year when they finally agreed to the certain amount of games in the shortened pandemic season. Just because they started the season doesn't mean that the tensions were released on both sides. There was still a lot of resentment on both sides, part of which you're now seeing right now with the lockout. Even when you don't just snap your fingers and say, okay, games are going to happen, and you don't just get over it. This is going to have effects for years to come, be it fans that are angry over what's happening right now, players that are angry over what's happening right now. Some of my friends in baseball are leaving the industry because the climate just isn't it's not conducive to a healthy lifestyle for them. And baseball's at a strange time right now. The lockout is not helping any of it.
Right.
There's my long-winded rant for the day. Probably lost the plot somewhere in there.
No, but I gotcha. I got it. Now, there were some things that were done before the lockout happened. The Yankees tendered contracts to people. Not really surprising. They got, well, all right, I'll say this. Not that I'm surprised that they gave Gary Sanchez a contract, but seeing people react to Gary Sanchez getting a contract was maybe my favorite thing from the other night. Because
here's what you need to know about the tendering everybody a contract.
Yeah.
The lockout probably changed their plans.
Right.
All that means right now is that the Yankees kept these guys in their system. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that any of them are going to be on their opening day. Let's just pretend for right now that there is going to be an opening day. We do still have to sort of operate as if there's going to be one at some point. All that means is that the Yankees retain these guys in their system. They can use them in trades.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that they're not going to go out there. Because what's expected is that post-lockout, there could be this major free agent frenzy. So this doesn't mean that because they tendered a contract to Miguel Andujar, that does not mean that they're not going to go out and get another infielder.
Right.
There's expected to be a lot of movement on the market when the new CBA gets signed or gets, enforced. If it ever does, it will.
I know it feels like this is going to be. I don't know. This feels like it's going to be long. I feel like the season's going to be screwed with. I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about this at all.
No, not a lot of people do right now. It's pretty pessimistic out there. But the Yankees, all that meant is that they kept these guys in their system. They can do with them what they wish at this point.
Right.
All that means is that they are still in the system. That does not mean they will be on the opening day roster.
Right. Yeah. And people were explaining that to people, the people who know better, but I was just laughing at people's reactions to certain guys that got tendered contracts. And it's like, what do you expect them to do? They're not going to throw Gary Sanchez away. They might trade him, but they're not going to just be like,
power hitting catcher is not somebody that you just part with. And Granted, his offensive production has ebbed and flowed, probably more so than they would have liked. And there are a lot of deserved criticisms about his defense, his footwork. Even, Scout was telling me just like the way that he holds his glove is not, I don't know. Like there are some deserved criticisms of Gary Sanchez's defense. But
I feel more comfortable with, I don't know. I know Kyle Higashioka runs into one every once in a while, but I almost feel like Gary Sanchez, even when he's not doing well, is more of a threat in the box when he's playing, because he can hit a ball 420, 30, 40 feet, especially when he's playing against certain teams that he does well against. And, I just feel like he can get better. I feel like last year was weird for a lot of guys, and I feel like if this season starts on time, if this season is the upcoming season, the balls aren't tampered with too much, you'll see some maybe bounce back. I'm not expecting him to hit 300 and anything like that, but
what did he hit last year? I can't remember. I had it pulled up earlier.
At least it wasn't 140. It wasn't 147, right? Because that was a really bad one. I'm so sorry about the noise that you people are hearing in the background, but my cats decided instead of sleeping like they normally do, they're running all over the place right now while I'm here. So I apologize for that. Yeah. If I could pick one up and show you, I would, but they're just running around too fast right now.
He hit 204 with a 423 slugging and a 730 OPS. That's obviously down from his 2016, 2017 numbers where he had an OPS. In 2016, he had an OPS of over 1,000. Granted, that was in only 53 games.
And it was insane 53 games. That was
yeah.
That was the Gary Sanchez everyone was hoping to get, the one that was, really feared. I told the story. I'll tell it again. My birthday, 2016, we were at a restaurant. Every time Gary Sanchez came up, It was against the Orioles. The whole bar and restaurant just stopped and watched him. And he was like 3 for 4 with 2 home runs and a double. It was a crazy game. And we all thought to ourselves, wow, we have a power catcher again. Like, this is awesome. And then didn't quite work out that way. But I have faith that he can turn things around. I might be too optimistic, but I do. I have faith that Gary Sanchez can turn things around.
Fun fact, today is his birthday.
Happy birthday, Gary Sanchez.
Happy birthday, Gary Sanchez.
Happy birthday to the
You
Kraken.
get a lockout for your birthday.
I know. Yeah, what a great present.
Yeah, but you got tendered a contract, so there's that. He's 29. The thing is, the thing that I keep coming back to is that he struggled so much defensively. That does lead to struggles in the box.
Yep, we talked about that
this before.
Yep.
It does lead to struggles in the box. So I don't know. It's got to be frustrating all these years of trying to figure out your role on the team when for your first few years, you thought you'd established your role. You know, he's a 2-time All-Star. He was nearly a Rookie of the Year. He thought he'd established his role, and then it got so bad that it looked like the Yankees weren't going to tender him a contract. For the last couple years, everyone's been wondering what's his status? Are the Yankees going to cut bait with him? And they've kept him, but I don't know how much confidence that's inspired just giving him a contract. That's sort of the bare minimum. So is that affecting his production at the plate? What can they do to improve? He's 29. He's not going to get that much better defensively. What can they do to help him on both sides of the ball? Is it a more limited role? Is he a reserve catcher at this point? Are you going to platoon him, with Higashioka, or are they going to make a play for another? I know Higashioka has sort of been Garrett Cole's personal catcher. Are they going to? I don't know who they have in the system catching wise. I don't know if there's anybody knocking at the door. I'll write that down.
Oh, they picked someone up, didn't they? I think they picked someone up. Yeah, and I can't think of his name right now. But one quick thing before we go, Clint Frazier to the Cubs. I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
I hope that things turn around for him there.
I hope that his mental health is okay and that the post-concussion syndrome is not too detrimental to his daily life, to his quality of life moving forward.
Yeah, because that's just, so good for him. I was happy that happened. Obviously happy it happened before the lockout and he wasn't waiting this whole time to have something happen. And I guess that's it for today because we have a hard out here. We got to go.
We're locked out.
We're locked out. So thank you for listening and watching. Once again, this is Locked On Yankees, and we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Abby and I would like to remind you that you can listen to this show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can watch and subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, thank you for allowing us to pass 600 subscribers on YouTube. That's awesome. And when you get into your car, you can tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Bets. Make your second listen of the day Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. One more thing, if you could be so kind, please rate the podcast and spread the word about this podcast to your fellow Yankee fans and your fellow baseball fans. I have Red Sox fans listening to this show. We have Red Sox fans listening and liking the show. That's kind of amazing. That shows that anything can happen. So enjoy your Thursday, and we'll talk to you all soon.